Full honesty and transparency this morning. As far as Father Shayne homilies go, this is a little bit on the longer side. My Father's Day gift to each and every one of you. But I have a lot to say. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence, you may murder the liar, but you cannot murder the lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence, you may murder the hater, but you do not murder the hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. And we are certainly living in darkness. How fitting this weekend's gospel encourages us to speak in the light. Now, we've all seen the sadness and the destruction, the anger and the fear that has been spreading through our community these last several weeks. And people want justice, as they should. After all, justice is a cardinal virtue that the church has been teaching for centuries. The church defines justice as the, quote, virtue which consists in the constant and firm will to give their due to God and to neighbor. The Catechism of the Catholic Church goes on to teach justice towards men disposes one to respect the rights of each and to establish in human relationships the harmony that promotes equity with regard to the person and the common good. Is that the type of justice that we see on the television or in the news or on social media? With our own eyes, we see night after night, day after day, full of nothing but hatred and violence, destruction and injustice. And the church and her members cannot be any clearer here. It boils down to respect, human relationships, harmony, equity, and the common good. Those things are what's missing from all of this. I have said over and over again, all of this boils down to the fact that even though we are all created in the image and likeness of God, even though we were all created with the capacity to love and to be loved, we do not, for so many reasons, respect the human person, from natural conception until natural death. We don't see each other with respect or harmony or equity or goodness. And why? Because we think we are better than the other. We are selfish, and we don't think the rules apply to us. And we certainly don't take responsibility for our actions. Now, wouldn't it be something, just once, that when we did something wrong, said something wrong, or thought something wrong, that we actually took responsibility for it instead of blaming someone else. It's always someone else's fault. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick and tired of people in our community not taking responsibility for their actions. And this goes from kids who are mean and bullies and disrespectful, all the way to their parents. And I must say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. To those in positions of authority and anyone in between. Now, being the pastor of a parish with a school, I know all too well what our children are exposed to. Unfortunately, I know what our children search for and do online. And it's pretty sad. And it's pretty scary. Because I know the lack of accountability and the too many freedoms that they have to do whatever they want, to whom whatever they want, wherever they want. Don't mind a big old sign that clearly says, do not do this, or you're not allowed to do that, or a handbook or a rule book that says you can or cannot do this. Just throw it out the window, because they will say, you're not going to do anything to me anyway. And that goes for the adults too. All of us, at some point in our lives, are guilty of violating one or more of the 10 Commandments. And so we are adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. If we don't take this more seriously, if we don't promote peace and justice and love and mercy, if we don't start holding people accountable for their actions, I promise you our future will be very dark. If we cannot or will not respect the human person no matter what, then our future together as a human race will be the complete opposite of what God intended it to be. And for that we can blame original sin and free will. Racism is a sin. And this is a direct quote from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Every form of social or cultural discrimination in fundamental rights on the grounds of sex, race, color, social conditions, language, or religion must be curbed and eradicated as incompatible with God's design. That's paragraph 1935. That's what the church teaches. And God is truly the only answer in our pursuit to end racism, violence, injustice, inequality, hate, murder, and war. The church teaches this, quote, "It is not easy for man wounded by sin to maintain moral balance. Christ's gift of salvation offers us the grace necessary to persevere in the pursuit of the virtues. Everyone should always ask for this grace of light and strength. We must frequent the sacraments, cooperate with the Holy Spirit, and follow his call to love what is good and to shun evil." And that paragraph says it all. I have never walked in the shoes of an African American or a police officer. Remember, many of you know I wanted to be a cop. But when you only spend 2 days in the police academy, it ain't gonna happen. But my dad was one. For almost 30 years, my father did the best he could to bring order and peace and justice to our city and to our county. He protected his community, his fellow officers and deputies, and he certainly protected his family. When I was a child, my father was my hero. I wanted to be just like him. He was an outstanding law enforcement official. And he still is my hero today, for many more reasons now that I know him as an adult. You and I both know that not all police officers or law enforcement officials are bad, racist, or full of hate. Some, unfortunately, are. Perhaps too many are. And some have done and said and acted in very bad and serious ways, and they should take ownership for their actions and be held accountable. Again, I have never walked in the shoes of an African American or a police officer, but I have walked in the shoes of a priest. And I can say with absolute certainty in these last 5 years, I have heard and seen it all. And it breaks my heart. God has given us 2 simple commandments: to love him above all and anything else, and to love our neighbors as ourselves, period. But for some reason, we keep screwing it up. No one, especially because of the color of their skin, should be labeled, profiled, abused, spoken down to, mistreated, or disrespected. Racism and being a Catholic do not go together. They are incompatible, and they are against the will of God. If you had or have racism on your souls, you must get rid of it immediately. No one should treat another human being in a disrespectful way, especially if they are in a position of authority. It has to stop. And reforms must happen. And we must continue the pursuit of justice, equality, love, and mercy. We cannot and should not ever give up. And this whole situation is not going to go away anytime soon. Thanks to the 24/7 access to media and videos and pictures and the like. We're going to always be inundated with it, but it does not have to consume our lives. We can stand up and we can fight against it. We can rise victorious because of our faith in the risen Lord. If and only if we hold true to the teachings of the church and of Christ. Brothers and sisters, we are all called. We are all called indeed to be Christ to those who are suffering. We are called to be that light shining in a very dark world. So today, are we going to recommit ourselves to being that light? Or are we going to pursue and encourage the deeper darkness in a world already devoid of stars? We all have a role to play and a part to play in improving the quality of life in our community. All life. So how can we help? What will we do? What will we do to improve the quality of life for everyone in our efforts to be the face of Christ to so many people who are living in darkness?